Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Horror 421, the podcast, with your host, your friendly small-town horror author, Charles Campbell. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the frights in this week's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Horror 421, the podcast. I'm your host, small-town horror author, Charles Campbell, and today I have a very special guest. I've reached out to him a couple months ago, and he has such a busy schedule. He's been working on these little movies about Art the Clown, but he has a movie of his own that came out not that long ago called Stream, and I want to welcome Michael Leavy from Fuzz On The Lens Productions to Horror 421, the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Charles, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited and happy that we finally got this thing rocking and rolling and we're able to make it happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I'm super excited to talk to you. You've been up to all kinds of crazy shit over the last few months, and this is, you can say whatever you want on this podcast. There's no, curse word meter or anything like that. Well, I want to back up a little bit, and I would like for you to introduce yourself to my listening audience, give them a little background on Michael, and then we'll get into a conversation.
Sure. My name is Michael Leavy. I played Will the Exterminator in the original Terrifier, also a producer and assistant director on Terrifier 2 and 3. I directed, produced, had a small role in the movie Stream that stars Jeffrey Combs, Danielle Harris, Dee Wallace, Tony Todd, Tim Reed, Tim Curry, Bill Moseley, Danny Roebuck, Felissa Rose, a huge, Mark Holton, a huge slew of horror greats that I was lucky enough to work with and direct. And I also directed a film, my first film, called Abnormal Attraction, starring Malcolm McDowell, Gilbert Gottfried, Bruce Davis, and Leslie Easterbrook. That's a monster comedy film. And it's just been having a blast trying to live out the dream, I guess.
Oh, geez, you've been killing it, man. And I'm glad you listed off all the actors involved in Stream, because I had to write them down because there were so many. So you list them all, and there's a number of horror icons in there. You have two Tims, you have Tim Reed and Tim Curry. So we'll get into that, but before we get into Stream, and that is what I want to talk about, because I've talked to Phil about the Terrifier franchise, and you guys were kind of tied at the hip for sure. But before we get into Stream, I want you to talk to me a little bit about how Fuzz on the Lens became associated with Terrifier, how you guys connected with Damien, and kind of what you did to help launch that franchise off the ground, because you guys did a fantastic job.
Thank you. It's funny, we were back in, I guess, the early 2000s, we were making short films and different things like that, trying to find our way. Being a huge fan of both horror and comedy, that tends to be a lot of where our work ends up lying, even though, I'm a huge fan of just movies and cinema in general. It's just those are my favorite genres, and a lot of us that, from Fuzz on the Lens and, people we work with, so we tend to do more of the horror and the comedy stuff. And we actually were one of the first, I guess if you remember correctly, those viral clowns that were happening all over the country, we were the ones that started that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just funny. Independent of Terrifier. It was called
Nice.
The Staten Island Clown. You could look into it. And that was like back in 2014 or something like that.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
So we did that, and that was really, it was a two kind of double-edged thing that we were doing, where we were, one, trying to do it as a social experiment and see if we can change the news and, kind of make an impact and, make our own narrative and kind of do like this real-life entertainment social experiment. And then the other aspect was that we were trying to also brand ourselves and get our company name out there and, start to promote feature films, and that's what we were trying to do. So that's how that all came about. From there, honestly, we did a lot of short films, too, in fan films. We did a Halloween fan film that kind of got us kick-started and, won a competition from that. And we did the Halloween 60 spoof, if anybody is interested in checking that out. It's what Michael Myers really would be like if he was actually in real life now at the age that he's at. It's a fun, we had fun with it. It's a fun little, we had the William Shatner face, because anybody who knows Halloween, Michael Myers' mask is a Captain Kirk mask. So we had a current mold of his face now changed into the Michael Myers mask, receding hairline. He takes Viagra, his knife gets big. So we had fun with it, and that kind of went viral. And then we were working on the film Abnormal Attraction, and it's funny how this all kind of came together. Our original sound guy wasn't able to make the rest of the shoot like he originally planned. He got a bigger gig. So one of the actresses that we cast says, "Oh, I worked with this guy, Jason Milstein. He's really great, and I highly recommend you bringing him in as the replacement." This guy comes in. He's not a sound man. He's a sound genius, and he's a producing genius, and he's unbelievable. So we hit it off immediately. This guy becomes our production supervisor, our post-production supervisor. I mean, he's like the unsung hero of Abnormal Attraction, Terrifier, Stream. It ends up being like that. And he says, "I have this producer friend that is just getting into producing movies. He's looking to direct his first film called Joe's War. Would you mind if I bring him down to your set? I just met him a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, and I just want to show him the ropes on how features are getting made." So I said, "Yes, absolutely." That person ends up being Phil Falcone.
Oh yeah.
And he comes to the set, and he's really impressed with what we're doing, and really likes what's going on. So he asks us to help him with his movie Joe's War that Damien was working on, and Jason was working on, and a few others were working on. And it was funny, on that set, we're working with Tom Sizemore, and Phil's directing it, and it was Phil's son that mentioned that he was going to go into producing this horror film called Terrifier. And if I've ever heard of Art the Clown All Hallows Eve,
right,
and I hadn't, which at that time, which I was surprised, because again, being a huge horror fan, I had not heard of it. And I remember his son showing me a picture of what Art looked like, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "That is something really cool." I said, "I hope they don't screw this up," because it's such a cool looking character. And then before you know it, we ended up again hitting it off with the whole team, and we were asked to come on board with it. Originally as actors, that's where I played Will the Exterminator, and my brother and my business partner Steve Delasala ended up playing the cops. But then as our relationship grew, we ended up doing a lot more, and we ended up doing some crew stuff on the first movie. But again, it wasn't as much as ended up becoming.
Right.
And then the first movie comes out, and it takes a little bit to build and build a fan base, and then obviously goes to Netflix, and then it kind of pops a little bit, but it's still this cult kind of horror thing.
That's where it got me, Netflix.
And that's where most people started to discover it. And then again, over the years, being from Staten Island, Damien's from Staten Island, we're from Staten Island, Phil has roots in Staten Island. We all speak the same lingo. George, the DP's from here, so we just got really close. And then as Terrifier 2 starts coming around, we were asked to come on in a much bigger capacity and actually produce it, and become partners with them in creating this, I guess now, franchise. And you saw what happened with Terrifier 2, and then now 3, and the rest is kind of history. And now we're always working together, we're always hanging out, and we've really become one big awesome family inside and outside of the industry.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I do want to ask you, I watched Terrifier on Netflix, I don't know, 2016, 17, whatever year it was, and it was great. I loved it, but it was a slasher, and it had a beginning and an end, and I didn't know anything else was going to become of it. And then I heard rumblings of Terrifier 2, and we ran into COVID, so we had some issues there. But how surprised were you, or were you surprised at all that it took off the way that it did? That thing blew up into a mega giant.
The way that it did, we were surprised. We always knew we had something special, and we knew that we were obviously going to pour everything we could into it, and we knew we had something cool. And again, to the extent of we just wanted to appease our fan base that got us to this point, and we didn't want to let them down. So there was that pressure of don't let them down, make a movie that is better than the one before, add some story to it, and really just have fun and kind of just stay true to who we are as filmmakers and fans. We knew it would be successful in that realm, meaning like with our fan base, because we really believe in what we were doing. But we had no idea what was coming. I remember when it was very surreal. It's still surreal to talk about it. That how it kind of just popped, and then it got more into pop culture and more, general moviegoers started to learn about it. And now it's just even surpassed all of that. Like even this next time around with part 3, again, we figured, okay, maybe it'll do a little better than part 2 because now it's known, to an extent. But we didn't expect to knock Joker out of the top spot and make $100 million in the box office. I mean, that is wild.
Yeah, that is insane.
We're just a few, a few guys and girls that are just making a movie pretty much in our backyard.
I was going to say those are insane numbers for an independent horror film. That's, I mean, a very well done independent horror film. But
thank you.
Wow, I was like,
crazy, and you never can think that.
Right.
You could maybe hope and dream, and then say, yeah, nah, never going to happen. You just try to make the best film we can. We all believe in each other. We all have a great kind of secondhand language that, we know how to communicate, and we all know how to work well together. And then again, everyone's working towards the same goal, which is, I think, important. And we all got each other's back for the best of the project. And I think that's where it all kind of starts.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy for you guys and the success that you've had. Phil was a wonderful guest. He's been on the podcast twice. I love talking to him. We talked to David a couple years ago, right before Terrifier 2 blew up. I can't get him in messages anymore because he's so freaking busy. But
his messages are probably like through the roof. Like it's tough. It gets great. Like I'm nowhere near the level of those guys, and it's hard for me to keep. And I'm pretty good at it. But it's hard for me to keep up with my messages. It just is a flood, and things disappear, or you forget, or you don't see it because there's so much. So I believe it.
Hell yeah. Well, I want to get back to Michael for a second before we get into Stream. Coming up, you're a successful film producer. You've directed a feature-length film now in Stream. I believe you wrote that movie too. Am I correct?
Yes, I was one of the writers.
One of the writers. Awesome. Well, coming up and getting into the getting into the business, so to say, who were some of your inspirations coming up, even as a kid? What drew you towards? This is the generic question. What drew you towards horror? But you said you have horror and comedy influences. So what sort of influences did you have?
Yeah, it's weird. As a kid, I can remember watching. There was like a Peter Pan, and I don't think I've ever even said this in an interview. There was like a Peter Pan on stage / they filmed it, TV movie maybe. I don't even know what it was. That I remember watching religiously over and over again. I was obsessed with like Captain Hook and, that whole kind of fantasy thing. And I would mock it and I would march around. Wizard of Oz, like it would start with that. I remember just the lines and just repeating over and over and acting out the scenes. And then that kind of grew into, where I would watch Dick Van Dyke and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and things like that, and that's the comedy side of things. And then I kind of, slowly got into horror. You Afraid of the Dark was a big show when I was growing up, and Goosebumps. Yeah. And, then my grandfather and my mom were big horror fans, and they got me into Halloween and Leprechaun, and like it slowly started stacking, and again, I just found a love for comedy originally, and then found this great love for horror, and I'm a huge, big Halloween, not only movie franchise guy, but also the holiday. Me and my brother have this tradition that started with my grandfather, my mother, of decorating, our house with life-size statues and things of different horror characters. And this thing has grown into something so big that the neighborhood now knows about it. We've been doing it for like 30 years. We've kept the tradition alive. We add new characters each year, and it's like a big display every Halloween. We really go all out. So like we're just a big fan of just the holiday in general. And I think Halloween is a filmmaker's holiday in a way because you dress up, you play someone you're not. It's all of this kind of lore and glitz and glamour in a way. So yeah, I mean, it was just kind of innate in me. My mom, again, was a huge horror fan. My grandfather was. Even my grandmother, I can remember as a kid dressing up as a witch and trying to scare us. So it was like always there. And my father's birthday's on Halloween. So I think it's just
awesome.
All serendipitous.
Wow, that's some good stuff, man. So you
and I was always obsessed with clowns too, which is weird. That like again, like there's pictures of me on my 3rd birthday with a clown, and then I loved it so much that I had that picture with the clown put on my 4th birthday's cake, and and then I got into Stephen King's It, and that scared the hell out of me. The miniseries, And then we did the Staten Island Clown years later, and now we're involved with Terrifier with the clown. So like that's a big thing that keeps coming back to.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you've read Stephen King's It.
Yeah.
But
after I saw the miniseries first, and then I did go and read it afterwards.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit in the book you can't put in a movie or on
I know.
television.
I know.
Oh, wow, man. Well, I notice you guys are hitting the convention scene a lot. I go to a few as an independent horror author. So tell me how that's been for you. What kind of whirlwind has the convention world been for you, and what are some of your highlights from going to these conventions?
It's been really surreal and very wild because I started out going to conventions just as a fan.
Yeah.
And I still go to, believe it or not, to some of them that I'm not a guest at. Still as a fan, I go and love to see the vendors and love to either go meet an actor or an actress that I've grown up fond of or idolizing or want to work with. So it started. I never knew. I kind of got into the convention game late as a fan though. Like I didn't know about them until like 2012.
Right.
So like I didn't. Just growing up, I never knew they existed. And then I went to my first one, Rock and Shock, which no longer exists. But now it's Silver Screams. They brought it back, but under a new name. And I remember meeting Robert Englund there, and we helped the Fangoria booth. And Anthony C. Ferranti with his Sharknado had just come out.
Nice.
And that's how I ended up in Sharknado 2 and like a small little bit thing, an extra thing that because of that. So like I all of a sudden fell in love with these conventions. I was like, wow, this is so cool. For many years then after that, I went as a fan. And then it was until now Terrifier kind of explodes, and now they're asking us to come in as guests. So now we're on the other side of it, which is so surreal, so bizarre. Like, to be invited and then to go and then meet fellow fans and people who appreciate your work. It's funny. Like I'm sitting there, and then you'll see like a Robert Englund or John Carpenter or somebody over there, and you're saying, "Why are you waiting to see us?" Like I want to go on that line and go see them.
Dude, it's a couple years ago in Atlanta, I go to Atlanta every year as a vendor.
So I'm going to be at Atlanta Days of the Dead this weekend.
Yeah, I know you are, and this is the first year in 7 years I'm not going to be there. Have other commitments, but a couple years ago when Terrifier 2 came out, and I don't know if you were there at that particular one, but the whole freaking floor was all you guys.
Yes, I was there. I was there. Yeah, in that main room.
Yeah. It was all Terrifier, and I bought the sweatshirt and the whole deal.
It was crazy. Yeah, I remember that. Like we went in, I'm like, all right, who's going to be here? And it was like a whole reunion. It was like Terrifier 2. There was Terrifier 1 people there.
Yep.
Phil was there. We had a great time. And I don't know if I've been back to the Days of the Dead Atlanta since that one. So I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited for you, and normally I'm there hawking my books, but I won't be there this year. Maybe I'll catch you next year.
Very cool.
But yeah, okay. Well, we've got that backstory. I want to talk to you about Stream. This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your first feature film directorial debut. Is that correct?
So it is in the horror world. I did one other film. Much lower budget, even though Stream's not a big budget, but it was called Abnormal Attraction. It was a comedy with some horror. I did that first. But it was a weird kind of, it was almost anthology-like. There were 3 separate storylines that kind of ran parallel to one another, and then at the end it all came together. So, this is, I guess, my first kind of traditional feature film in that regard, and especially in the horror world, because I've, like last couple of years I've been doing documentaries, Pennywise, Stephen King's It, Robert Englund documentary, helping those guys out, and then also Terrifier. Right. So that's been most of my last few years. So this was my first, outing into the horror as my own director and directing my own piece. That was funny that the movie we had written. So I was in a movie called Penance Lane. Tyler Mane was the main star. Scout Taylor Compton was in it. Danny Roebuck, that's how we met him, and John Schneider. We shot it in Atlanta, Fayetteville area, and Grantville, which is not too far, maybe 45, 50 minutes away. So that's around that time was, I think, 2015, 2016 is where we came up with the idea for Stream, even before I was involved in the first Terrifier we shot. Right. So, we've been sitting on this for a while. And then obviously right after Terrifier 2, we went into production on Stream, but Terrifier 2 wasn't even out when we filmed Stream. So then Terrifier 2 comes out and Stream is now in post-production. So it took a really long time to kind of get off the ground. COVID obviously was in the middle of all of this. So now it's finally out and we're super stoked of the response that people are having to it. They're getting it. We're hoping to get a sequel. That's the plan. If we're lucky enough to get one, just like we did with Terrifier 1 to 2 and now to 3, you see those jumps.
Oh yeah.
The fan base really tells you what they resonate with, what they want to see different, what they want to see more of. So we're really excited if we get the chance for what we can do with this concept, because we think the concept is really king and key.
Well, I certainly think it warrants a sequel. And you called it low budget, but you guys got a great ensemble cast for sure. And I could go through each one, and they're all, a lot of them are like legends in their own way, and from the films they've done. But tell me what it was like working with Dee Wallace. She goes to a lot of the conventions, and I've met her a couple times. She's a sweetheart of a lady, but tell me what it was like working with her. I thought that was pretty cool.
It was so cool, and she was just intimidating when you hear Dee Wallace and some of these people, right, are coming in, and I'm a younger director that, these people can run circles around me. But they really treat you as a peer. They listen. They understand the hierarchy, and they guide you any way that they can. They take direction like a pro. And it really goes to show why they have these long careers. And Dee was so sweet. Just what you see at the conventions is how she is on set. She's very lighthearted and, just trying to do the best for the project and cracking jokes here and there. It's funny because Dee and Jeffrey Combs work together a lot, right? And Jeff loves to rehearse. He's a very rehearse, get it right, try it again, do this, do that, rehearse. Whereas Dee doesn't like to rehearse as much. So she's just very she comes in and she wants to just kind of make it fresh, and whatever comes out of it is very natural. Both of their styles are totally different, but yet they both work for them, and they're both brilliant, So it's cool to see that, and as a director, kind of learning that how to deal with people, that have different personalities in different ways, and then kind of forming that and making it malleable into what we're doing. But yeah, just very fortunate to work with the cast that we got to work with. And it started with the script. They all really liked the concept. They all really liked the script. I know Jeff, after he had read it, he had said, this is like more than just this mundane killing slasher film. Even though you got the gore and you got the kills, he's like, you're trying to create reason to this. And, you're trying to build this kind of backstory with this family. And, he got what we were trying to do, and that we were laying the foundation for a much bigger, story as we go forward.
Yeah, well, Jeff Combs, he was super enjoyable to watch in that movie. Now, before I get into more of the cast a little bit, tell me how you came up with the idea for Stream. Obviously, you're a writer, and I always want to pick writers' brains. What were some of the things that influenced you to come up with this? What hit you? What idea hit you to come up with this film?
So when we started writing it, number one was we always wanted to do something that was isolated in one location. And so that's where the idea of being in a hotel first started. I knew that we wanted to, whatever it was, we wanted to follow a family, and we wanted to follow a dad. Because obviously in horror, the trope, the final girl, we love them, we appreciate them. I look at Terrifier, Sienna, and, but I wanted to try something a little different. Say, all right, what if we bring a fatherly figure into this kind of, role where usually it's only action, hero movies where you see that. Right. And, kind of bring that into the horror world and see how that goes, just to kind of flip it on its head a little bit. And so that was the initial start of it. And then cryptocurrency was big around that time. It started popping up, and Bitcoin and Litecoin and all that stuff. So that was in the back of our minds. And then we just kept saying, what does horror do best? We kept asking ourselves that. And we were like, they kind of exploit your safe spaces. And it's like, all right, Halloween, they kind of took the neighborhood, right? The babysitting and the house and the home and exploited it. Nightmare on Elm Street, you're in your bed. Now it's your dreams. It's your mind. Yep. Camp Crystal Lake was Friday the 13th. Jaws was A Day at the Beach. You can go so on and so forth for all of these movies, and they do that. So we said, okay, what is something now that's more modern that hasn't been done? And we kept saying, well, it's technology. Everybody uses it. It's relatable, but yet we still question it. Where is the government listening to me? Is my phone, why are these ads coming up? So then it was so we question it, but yet we still use it. And it was and we still put all our information out there. And like that's how it started to build. And we're like this voyeurism and this listening and the techie stuff. And then we're like, okay, now if you put them in a hotel, we're going to exploit that as well. The physical, this is kind of like the idea, and then it's the in the space, and then it's the physical. Okay, Psycho did it in the shower. It was in the motel. Most people would pass that motel and say, "Yeah, I'm not staying there." But with us, we were saying, let's make it a normal place that you would say, "Oh, I've stayed in a place like this, or I would stay in a place like this." There's no red flags about it.
Right.
It's a normal hotel. It's a Holiday Inn. It's a Marriott. It's a whatever. And that's kind of how it built. And then eventually we were like, we still want to keep it a traditional slasher, so we didn't want to go too much in the first one into the behind the scenes of the tech and the listening. We just wanted to lay that foundation because we started to realize, as much as we love the Jasons and the Michaels and the Freddys, there's always some crazy reason eventually why they keep coming back, right? Yeah. And then eventually maybe you jump the shark. Whereas this, we said, more so than the one singular Michael Myers, the concept, the game is bigger than what that one person is. And you could bring it back every time with a new story, with a new cast. You could try something different. It's kind of endless with the possibilities and potential. And you don't have to just be in a hotel. You can do it on a cruise ship. You can do it in a hospital. You can do it anywhere, all over the place. And that really intrigued us, and that there's so many things we can do with it and so many ways we can go with it that keep it still fresh. So there's a lot of positives in how we kind of started formulating this idea.
Well, I love it, man. And you still have this ominous figure in the background so there's more story there, and it's much bigger than than the first film presents, but you give hints at what it can be and what it will be if you continue to do those. So I was super intrigued. I went and saw it at the theater during its run,
you.
I bought it on Amazon or Fandango or one of those streaming services.
Thank you. And we wanted to like the way the masks also were created was we kept saying, all right, what's worked in the past, and like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Ghostface, they're white masks, right? No teeth. Mostly either shut or open, but no teeth, and they're rubbery kind of masks, right? Yeah. Jason's a little harder, but again, it was like, now how do we modernize that? We decided to go with a hard carbon fiber mask. Instead of going white, we went dark with it. We went black carbon fiber pattern. We added teeth.
Yeah,
our eyes are
on
not
your
jet
shirt.
black.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Our eyes are not jet black. They light up. That's kind of the tech aspect of it, the LED lights. So there was like all of these things that we tried to add a modern twist on it and create our own new look. And then also we wanted everyone to know, like, we're doing Terrifier, and this is not Terrifier. This is something different. And that was important to us. Obviously, we bring the gore. Obviously, you know what you're going to get when you see something now that's coming from us and Damien. But we wanted to showcase another side of a story that we're doing, to where it's like, oh, these guys can do more than just Terrifier, and they have other ideas and they have other things, and now we're trying to build this fan base, this franchise up.
Well, I think you're doing a great job so far. Now, I've got it streaming. I'm a big physical media guy. Well, is it available in physical media, or will it be?
So it will be. It's not yet. We're working on the DVDs and the Blu-rays. We're putting together some special features, like blooper reels and deleted scenes and things, behind the scenes stuff. We would have had it sooner, but we actually opened up last month. There's so much cosplay going on now with it, and people doing artwork, and we thought it would be really cool to kind of take some of those things, and we asked the fans to send them in to us. So we put them together on the special features so we can kind of all share in this really cool movement that's happening. So that's what kind of delayed the manufacturing of the disc, but it's happening. But next, I think the end of this month or early next month, we do have VHSs that are available for pre-order now. They're going to be coming out, and we got a sick design. Yep. We got a sick, like same guys. We got a sick design that they did, an old retro kind of drawing for the stream VHSs, and some of them we have limited edition colored tapes. So the tapes are actually colored with glow and stuff. So yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. I'm glad it's growing, and I'm on the fan page. I'm on the chat, and I see all the activity that's going on. So it is definitely growing, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
It's just so cool to see, that people are resonating it, they're getting it, they're sharing it, and that's the most studios don't really understand this grassroots approach, and like we really connect with our fan base. It started with Terrifier, and now Stream, and some of the other things that we're doing, Screamboat. We connect with our fans because we're fans also. We're fans of the genre also, first and foremost. So, we get excited to interact and, to hear your thoughts and hear the fans' thoughts, because it drives us and it motivates us, and it's really cool to see people getting what we're doing and excited to share and talk about it.
Well, you certainly have me excited about it, so I can't wait to see what else comes of it. So some of the other cast members I do want to bring up, and you got a big one, and it was kind of I don't want to give too much away because a lot of the audience may not have seen the film yet, but you actually were able to get Tim Curry, and how did you get him? That was a pretty big get.
Yeah, and he's not doing much work anymore, and I tried to get Tim for my first movie, Abnormal Attraction, years ago. And unfortunately, he had the stroke, and I wasn't able to get him. But I kept in touch with his management, and would check in over the years. And obviously, then we did the Pennywise doc. And when we were putting together Stream, he was somebody I always wanted to work with, and I found an opportunity for a role to say, hey, this might be cool, and be in his wheelhouse and something he can do and be excited about. And I just presented it to them. And Tim liked it, and he was like, yeah, that's cool. And then I got to direct Tim Curry and get him involved in our film, and it was such a surreal, amazing experience. Again, he's somebody that I've idolized growing up. As I mentioned, Stephen King's Hit the miniseries, and he's one of the few people that really inspired me to get into this business. And you don't get to usually work with, I don't think I'm going to work with Dick Van Dyke as much as I want to, Robert Englund would love to direct him. Joe Pesci, I don't think I'm gonna. So there's you don't always get the chance to work with some of the people that you've really appreciated and influenced you. So to be able to do that with Tim was just an amazing moment. And I have to thank my wife too for pushing me and being very supportive of that and making it happen with me.
Well, that's amazing, man. I'm one of the Rocky Horror guys, so I'll be 56 this month. I used to go to the midnight showings at the local mall.
Throw the spoons?
Yeah. Tim's amazing. He's done all kinds of cool shit.
Yeah, and he was like so gracious, and he shared with me some Home Alone stories, Rocky Horror stories, It stories, Muppets, Pirates of the Caribbean stories. So I'm a huge fan of that too. So it was really, really nice to get to work with him, and he's just still charming as ever, and I think he put on a really great performance too in Stream, and that just goes to show you, the acting chops this man has.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved him in Legend too. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh my God,
Darkness, yeah. Oh jeez,
Darkness, one of my favorites. I got a huge Legend bust.
Oh, nice.
In my
Awesome. I do want to bring up the dearly departed Tony Todd. Rest in peace, Tony. How was it? Was that his last role? I don't know. I don't know what he had on.
So it was his last role film that came out as he was still with us. He has the Final Destination movie that's coming out. But I also worked with him on another movie right after Stream that's not out yet.
Okay.
So that might be his last role, depending on which one comes out first, Final Destination or this movie called Pitchfork Retreat. And Tony has a great role. Oh, you're going to love him in it. He nails it. It's amazing. So I got to work with Tony twice. Obviously, we were in talks for Stream 2 if it was going to happen, and he was super excited about it. Fans will be happy with what we're going to do, but obviously we have to go in a different direction than originally planned. But we're going to pay tribute to him, and we're going to honor him. And we have some cool things up our sleeves if we're able to do it. But it sucks, because he was so supportive of the project and the franchise and me and us, and really a great guy. And it's just a shame. Too soon.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he's done a lot, man. His film library is insane. But yeah, rest in peace, Tony. Well, you brought it up, and I have a note here before we end the podcast today. I do want to go back to Screamboat. I have my note here, and shout out to David Howard Thornton. He's Steamboat Willie in this movie. He was player 2 in Stream, and you all already know him as Art the Clown. But talk to us a little bit about Screamboat and what we can expect from that film.
Totally different from anything we've done. It's not like Terrifier, not like Stream. Obviously, we do still deliver on the gore. But it's a fun movie. It's more of a comedy. And it's got some campiness to it, and it's a satire, and we have some really fun Disney references that we kind of poke fun at a little bit. But David did a great job portraying Steamboat Willie, and we shot it on a real life Staten Island ferry, and I got a small little cameo part in it. And right now we're doing test screenings and little fan screenings and sneak peeks across the country. We did one in Vegas at Days of the Dead. We just did one at MegaCon in Orlando. We're going to do one at Days of the Dead Atlanta this coming weekend, and the fans have really been responding to it. They're getting what we're doing. They're having fun with it. They're seeing that this is, campy and fun, and you can laugh, and they're just having a good time with it. So the overall response so far has been really encouraging, and I can't wait for people to see it. Like I said, this was a good opportunity. Like, look, you have a killer mouse that's like this big chasing after you. Like, how could it not be funny? So it's not meant to be taken seriously, and it's just meant to have a good time. But I think it's nice that we're able to lean into some of the comedy that we love. We just did, I don't know if you saw it, I got to play Freddy Krueger in a short comedy sketch called Date Night with Freddy Krueger. And so I got to play Freddy, which was awesome. And it was a comedy. It was a spoof.
Nice.
It was a satire. But I got to do my Freddy chops. And so it's nice every once in a while to lean into that comedy when we're doing so much gruesome horror stuff.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Well, Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was super awesome chatting with you. And you've done you've done most of my work for me because you've given us all a lot of information. You've given us some good stuff. But what I want to do is I want to shut up one more time and let you talk, and I want you to let our audience know what's coming out, where they can find Fuzz on the Lens, where we can buy merchandise, whatever you want to plug and put out there, and I'll put links below so people can click on it very easily. But fire away.
Yeah, the main thing is if you want to follow what we're doing, Fuzz On The Lens, fuzzonlens.com. There's a shop, the Fuzz Shop. You can find all things Terrifier, Stream, Screamboat eventually, and cool posters, Stream masks and stuff. We try to put the collection of everything that's on the internet onto our links, so this way you can just find it easy in one spot. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, all that stuff. TikTok, but also Stream, at Stream Franchise everywhere, #join the stream. If you want to watch Stream, if you haven't seen it, please check it out. Again, we're no studio. It's just like Terrifier. It's just a group of people making a movie that, it's all up to the fans and everybody to check it out for us to continue doing this. It's on Amazon. It's on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Vudu, which is Fandango now, Apple TV. So it's in a few spots. And soon it'll be out internationally. Nice. And, we're in only English speaking right now, but it's going to be everywhere soon. And we also will have the DVDs and the Blu-rays, and, the VHS is coming out. So there's a lot coming there. Screamboat hits theaters April 2nd, I believe. And, and then also we got coming down the pike eventually Terrifier 4. So there's a lot happening, and hopefully Stream 2. But again, that's up to you guys to continue to share the word and watch the film and let us know what you think. If you like it, rate it on Letterboxd, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb. That's so helpful for independent, non-studio movies. You have no idea. Okay, I'll certainly have to go do that myself. And I'd say the same thing about indie authors. So great, man. I am Charles Campbell. I'm a small-town horror author. My latest release is called Signature Cut Above. It's about a batshit crazy beautician who goes to work with those scissors. That's all I will say about that. I love it. You can find it at valleyboypublications.com. I have links to all my stuff there. You can buy 15 other books at the website. So book 16 comes out this year, and it's called Three Knocks. It'll be out late summer. So for my folks, please pick it up. And thank you again for being on the show, Michael. Thank you for having me. It means a lot. We'll see you next time on Horror 421, the podcast. Peace.